Hi, I'm Dave Bundy, editor of the Lincoln Journal-Star, and we're at our editorial board interview with Richard Aldag. He's a LPS Board of Education candidate in District 6. That's sort of the middle of East Lincoln. Richard, thanks for being with us. Before we hear from you as our guest of honor, we'll have our other editorial board members introduce themselves. Natalia, you want to start us off?
Sure. Hi, Richard. I'm Natalia Witta. I'm the president of the Journal-Star.
Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike James. I'm a community member and the newest member of the editorial board this year.
And Kent?
Kent Walgamot. Am I muted?
No, you're good.
Kent Walgamot. I write about arts and entertainment, and I've been on the editorial board for too long. 12, 13 years, something like that.
You relish every single one of our meetings, I know. But I really blew it. I should have just started mouthing words that made you think you couldn't hear either. All right. Well, Richard, we are grateful to have you here. We're grateful for your interest in serving the public, giving the public an option as a candidate. So we'd like to get to know you better. The first question is, why do you want to be on the school board, and what experiences and attributes qualify you to serve?
Sure. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak and kind of present and introduce myself to your readers and everybody that's going to follow you. And thanks to the board members for showing up for the questions. I think to start off, talk about I've got 4 kids. I have 4 kids, 2 bigs and 2 smalls. My oldest are 22 and 20, and my smalls are 13 and 7. My 2 bigs went to school, Lincoln Public Schools. We actually started them out at parochial school and then chose to put them back into public schools because it was the best option for us. And then today we're taking our smalls, our 7-year-old, out of Lincoln Public Schools and into parochial schools because that's where we feel he's best served. And it kind of presented a problem for me. So this is me running as me being part of the solution. I've got a lot of career experience. You know that I've retired from the military after 23 years in 2012. There I was a people leader and got experience building organizations, developing people and coaching. I spent 3 years in a combat zone, making tough decisions, risking with people, and leading them through that challenge. I actually built from the ground up one military organization that exists today, and then expanded or scaled a second organization from a 30-man unit to about 150-man unit. And I got to deal with all of the organizational development issues that come with that and the culture clashes. Learned a lot from that. I did not come out unscathed by any means. I retired from the State Patrol in last year in 2022, after 25 years. More than half of my time on the patrol was as a leader. My last assignments was to build the State Information Analysis Center, built it from the ground up, took on projects statewide, such as a statewide technology program that integrated and ingested data from all kinds of agencies, state and federal agencies, into one platform so all agencies could share and collaborate with each other. It's a huge undertaking with lots of stakeholder meetings, addressing and doing business analysis to address everybody's interests. And then also some building projects. I took the existing location, which was the old LPS or old LPD building downtown that was condemned, and did a project where I refit an existing building. I had to rebuild it completely, working with general contractors and other state services like the Department of Administrative Services to coordinate all their efforts and their timelines to build out the site and then culminating into moving everybody, 100 people, into the building over a weekend with no loss of service to the public, right? So that was unplug on Friday, be ready to serve the public again on Monday morning. In terms of organization, we took my position, grew it, expanded it. We kind of morphed it, developed another organization out of it called the Criminal Identification Division. It's where teachers go to get their fingerprints done. Anybody that has a legislative requirement to get a fingerprint-based background check, that's where you go. We expanded that and developed that division into what it is today. It's a huge public service, public-facing entity within the State Patrol. Built that up. Got to experience a lot of the HR functions there. I learned a lot about developing positions, getting grants, budgeting, spending money, and so forth. And then the last part of my duties at the State Patrol was started in 2019. They turned me into an emergency manager. They knew I could walk the walk and talk the talk with the military. We had the flooding going on. They needed somebody over to represent the agency during the emergency. So they turned me into more of an emergency management role. And there I got to develop response packages for emergencies, do some financial analysis, fund the project, man the project, work on the logistics towards the project, and then track and recover the funds. So of course I had to work with FEMA, the state's NEMA, and other entities to recover money. I did a lot of the flooding. I did a lot of the wildfires out west. I ended up developing a relationship, saving money by using drones to cover the fires and surveil the fires instead of our airplanes. Puts less people at risk, costs less money per hour to fly a drone. Worked a lot there too with private entities. One of the projects I undertook was during the pandemic. We were running out of filters, running out of PPE. Of course, I managed that entire supply for the State Patrol, but we had an issue with investigators going into the prisons, going into confined spaces, things like that, where COVID exposure might be a problem for them. We were burning through all of our resources. So I ended up solving that by working with Kawasaki, their engineers, and another company, Intimetal, with their 3D printers. And we created some designed and created some adapters so we could use old filters that were still good for COVID protection, but didn't fit into our current masks that they used. Those private.
You're breaking up a little bit, Richard.
I'm a businessy guy. I'm a process guy. Oh, yeah, it says my internet's unstable.
Okay, well, yeah, you broke up a little bit. I think we heard everything. You have the law enforcement career, but I have to be the time cop here. So I'm gonna.
Yes. Oh no.
I'm gonna keep you moving a little bit so we make sure we get to all the stuff. And if there's something that you missed
Sure.
right there, we can come back. Second question for you. It's been a source of contention a little bit, both in Lincoln Public Schools and statewide and even nationally. What role do you think parents should play in education, particularly at an administrative level?
Sure. I think, parents should be squarely involved, right? We're the stakeholder. We probably have the most at stake in the education of our kids. So as a parent, me every day, we ensure that we get them into the right programs that benefits them. I read to them. I watch their homework. I get involved in their schools. I go to their programs. I meet their teachers.
I guess what I'm really going for though is, I mean, I think everybody agrees parents need to be deeply involved in their own children's education. But some of the tension has been, parents showing up at school board meetings and wanting to have a greater say, and school board meetings not necessarily by the board's definition being set up for that. So kind of at an administrative level, what should the relationship between parents and the school board, that direct relationship, look like?
Well, I mean, certainly they need to be heard at the public school board meetings, right? And certainly their voices should be heard, and they should have influence over what the schools, or what's occurring in our schools, whether it be curriculum, or budgeting. And I know LPS involves parents in committees and working groups already. I think that's completely appropriate.
So in your mind, what are the most pressing facility and staffing needs that LPS is facing right now?
Well, overall, the number one facility need, probably not the number one priority, is we got to stand up the new high school standing there, right? And it can't be the same thing that happened over at Northwest, where the facility wasn't really ready for students to come in. That's probably the most pressing. They're on a tight timeline right now. And, we need to keep up with our facilities. I think LPS tries to maintain about a 10% maintenance rate every year. Maybe we could slow that down, but that's one of those things you can't get behind on, because if you get behind, but really the big issue overall is teachers. We have teacher shortage, whether they be full-time teachers or whether it's substitute teachers. And more specifically, I think a concern for me is the special education teachers. We're falling behind with our IEPs in our public schools. That's out there in the public, and I can't see that happening. And teacher shortage is really what drives that. Talking to administrators in LPS, they're getting a lot more special education students. They're not matching up with the proper amount of special education teacher staff. So that workload for those teachers is big. And then you have teacher shortages in the general classroom. And sometimes those special education teachers have to cover that class, which means they can't pay attention to their IEP and their special ed students. That's a huge problem for me. And that's something I think we could fix pretty quickly.
And what do you think the solutions are for that?
Well, I've always been a proponent for now pay isn't always the answer, but in this case, I think it is pay. I think we need to somehow incentivize. I know there's a plan coming out from the governor's office, but we need to incentivize really priority teaching positions. Special education is one of them. They're investing a lot of time and energy into those learners, right? They have a hard job, and I think it deserves a little bit of extra pay, whether that be a stipend while they hold that credential and are teaching those students, or however it works out. Then we need to incentivize them somehow. But I think that also should apply towards priority teaching positions if we want to do it. If that's our priority and we want to get good teachers there, let's incentivize them to come.
All right, we've picked up the pace considerably, so we're doing just fine. Next question for you. How do you think LPS is performing as a steward of taxpayer money?
Obviously, it can be better. It's just like any large government organization, right? It's gigantic. We're spending money in areas that are legacy areas, and there's always going to be
Looks like Richard, we lost you for the last
so.
Richard, we lost you for about
Yeah.
the last 20 seconds, maybe. If you can repeat what you just said. I apologize.
Sure. Yeah, no, I must be having some bandwidth issue on my part. So what I said is that obviously a big organization, you have to ensure that money is flowing down the proper priorities for your goals, right? And that you're not funding competing priorities, which happens a lot inside of large organizations. So that's a strength that I have with my background, to be able to follow those trails and ensure that the budget's going to the right places.
All right, next question, and this is one you're probably, given your military and law enforcement background, probably are uniquely qualified to answer. But there have been questions about officers and police officers in schools, the application of discipline, and periodically we have, student and teacher safety issues in schools. How does LPS perform in these areas, and what kind of improvements, if any, do you think need to be made? I'm guessing this is a bandwidth issue, and Richard's not just thinking. There you go. Are you back? We lost you for a second.
I'm back. I'm not sure I heard your answer too much. It's about school security and what's my background, right?
Yeah, let me ask. Yeah, I'll ask it again. There have been questions about officers in schools, the application of discipline. Periodically, there are student and teacher safety issues in schools. How do you think LPS performs, and what areas, if any, could you see improvements? This is an unlucky question, I guess. All right, you're back.
Yikes, I just dropped and came back.
Okay, did you get the question, or do you want it again? I'm getting better every time. You want me to repeat it, Richard?
Well, let me just answer. I think I've got the question. It's about school safety. Well, let me tell you my background. I didn't get to it, but in the State Patrol, one of my duties was to perform as a team member and a leader of a behavioral threat assessment team. It's the same thing that the schools use today. I interacted with LPS and other school districts around the state and the university. Dr. Mario Scolar over at the university really kind of drives that program in the state. Those are certainly skills I bring to the table. I can look inside the systems and into the district and see what they're doing. I have a particular interest with that, especially with some recent interest or recent events that occurred, say over at Irving, something recently there. So I can bring that skill to the table. Also with physical security, there's things that we could do to improve security or defense in depth. That doesn't mean guns or anything like that. That means eyes outside. That means people at doors. That means access limitations, card readers, things like that. Just easy, normal, everyday practice that are easy to implement, and they do a good job over there. There's some polls maybe, and maybe I can help bring some attention to that into the board and represent that security piece maybe a little bit better when we're making decisions.
All right, I've got one final question for you, but I wanted to see if any of the Edit board members have a follow-up question. Mike.
You mentioned, LPS isn't meeting the needs of your students or your family, and that perked my curiosity. I'm like, what would you change in LPS to better align LPS so they could meet your educational needs for your children?
Mike, you're a little bit spotty there. I think on my side, I think you're asking me what would I change that would help meet my child's need today, right? Which sparked my decision to move him out. And Yep. Okay. So, you know what it really comes down to is that it's the discipline in the classroom. It's the interruptions that's driven by classroom size. That really was the root cause of it. Again, that's the root part of all my efforts, I think, is going to be to what can we do to drive that the classroom size down? What strategies can we employ to do that? And I think it starts to spread out across the entire system and solve issues. Plus, I think at the school my child is at today, we really have a good reading program. That's a big deal, early childhood education and reading comprehension. And I don't necessarily see that in the public schools of drive there either.
All right, does anybody have any other questions before I ask my last one? All right, so Richard, the last question is as I said, an open-ended one. What didn't we ask you about that you wish we would have? Can be a policy thing, a personal thing, whatever you think you'd like folks to know that we didn't get to.
Sure. Well, let me go back to the first question. I'll kind of fill in some of the gap there a little bit. I've already touched on some of it. I didn't talk about my education. That was going to come a little bit last. Of course, I'm a product of the Lincoln Public Schools. I'm a Sheridan kid, and my wife also is a LPS product of LPS. I've got in business, and I've got a master's of business administration from Nebraska Wesleyan. Did that kind of late in life so I could show my kids to always be a lifelong learner, right? And put my money where my mouth is. So I chased that down. Plus, I'm a business owner. I own several businesses, dance studio, commercial real estate investment company. So I deal with facilities and maintaining and taking care of facilities. And I have I'm president of a logistics company. So lots of processes there, meeting logistical needs for a geographic space with people's time and truck capacity, say. So I do delivery, last mile delivery. So I've got a lot of experience there. We really hit on a lot of the topics that are important to me when it comes to safety, special education, and school security and special education. Probably the only thing, last thing really to say is I'm happy for a lot of the movement that we bring funds to public schools. I think it's a good effort, and it'll be good for our schools in the future.
All right. Well, with that, Richard, I think we're concluded a couple minutes early. We thank you for your time. We wish you the best with your campaign, and thanks for taking the time to talk with us and with our readers this morning.
Hey, thanks everybody. Appreciate the opportunity. Hope you guys it's going to be a nice day today. So I hope you get out there.
All right.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.
See you later.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.